ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
And it's Tuesday morning. I hope you had a great President's Day. If you weren't with us yesterday, missed a heck of a show, but we're glad you're back for the Reid Revolution as we get started on a 4-day work week for a lot of folks. I'm John Reid, and lots to talk about today. The first thing I wanted to mention is a story that I think does highlight the difference between the way Republican governors and Republican elected officials and appointed officials are covered, and the way Democrats are covered. Honestly, are you aware of a 200 million gallon spill in the Potomac River up near Washington? I guess it started in Maryland, and I would use this as an opportunity without a lot of detail. And, I try to be a fair person, so maybe someone will do some research on this and prove that my initial reaction is wrong, which is possible. Maryland has been run by Democrats for a long time. Baltimore and a lot of the local leaders in Maryland are Democrats. I guess they did have in Maryland had a Republican governor for a little while, but now they got Wes Moore, who's blown through all of the reserve money that the Republican governor was able to amass, and now they've got a real financial crisis in Maryland. And one would think that if anybody was paying attention in Virginia, you might be a little concerned about that. Like, okay, here's a pattern. Republican governors wind up amassing a huge surplus and kind of setting it aside. And Democrat governors see that and go, oh, let's figure out a way to spend all that money. And then you wind up in a big problem, right? Maybe there's a pattern here. Maybe there's something we should be concerned about. That's a story that I think is probably underreported. And I suspect you could see that if you drew back and got to the 50,000 foot level and looked at about 20 years, you would see that pattern in a lot of different places. But, our own folks don't seem to do a good job of pulling that data out. And then most people in the national media don't want to cover those types of stories for whatever reason. Well, here you've got this huge, I don't know, is it a crisis? 200 million gallons seems like a lot to me of raw sewage going into the Potomac River. They're not, I don't know, there're probably not a lot of boaters in the Potomac River in February and March. It's pretty cold, the wind's blowing. This is not recreational season on the Potomac River, and you don't have the same migration of the birds, so perhaps the environmental impact and the subsequent impact to the animals all over the area is minimal. But it's a pretty big leak. I think if this was a Republican governor, like if Glenn Youngkin were still the governor of Virginia, a Republican governor, there would be a hue and cry about the environmental impact of this leak. It's a disgusting story. Raw sewage in the Potomac River. That's pretty gross. And I don't know. I'm trying to visualize 200 million gallons. That seems that eventually I suppose that will be diluted. Somehow it'll move on down the river and will be diluted. But that seems like a big problem to me. And I suspect it's an infrastructure problem that is consistent with not taking care of the pipes and the pumps. What have I been saying for years? Democrats don't monitor the actual elements of local government that keep the civilized society functioning. They're worried about social justice warrior issues and performative symbolic gestures that don't really help the citizens. They get a lot of headlines and they make a lot of people very agitated or feel good about them, one or the other, but they don't really take care of the details. So now you've got this huge leak. You don't have Glenn Youngkin as governor. And I suspect that the headlines would be, why isn't Glenn Youngkin in a scuba suit with a net scooping turds out of the Potomac River if he were the governor? That's a little crass, but I mean, you get my point. I suspect it would all be blamed on him, and that no matter what he did, short of him diving into the river himself and cleaning it himself, nothing would be acceptable because he's a Republican governor. And fundamentally, we've all been conditioned to believe that Republicans don't care about the environment, even though I don't think that's true at all. We just don't make stupid decisions that undermine the economy um, in order to have a symbolic gesture towards environmentalists. That's the difference. I don't think Republicans are dismissive of the environment at all. But Glenn Youngkin isn't governor now. So Abigail Spanberger is the Democrat. Now, in fairness to Abigail Spanberger, because again, I like to be a fair person, what's she supposed to do? She's only been in for a month. And today is the 1 month mark for Abigail Spanberger having been governor. But you're governor, you still got to deal with this. Has anybody really asked her in an aggressive fashion? Are we blaming Abigail Spanberger for this? I mean, I guess it was Maryland pipes, so we can't blame Abigail, although it's a Democrat governor in Maryland. But what are you doing? What are you doing? Anybody suggesting that this is all Abigail Spanberger's fault, or maybe it's all Democrats' fault for not having spent the money in decades previous to have a plan to clean this up? I mean, you get the point. I hope that this is what would normally happen with a Republican. There would never be a way for the Republican to escape the scrutiny and the criticism, even if it wasn't their fault. Even if they had been in office for a month, it would be their fault that there's raw sewage rolling through the Potomac River. What are you going to do about it? So, in all fairness, I think people should be all over Abigail Spanberger, not blaming her, but saying, hey, what are you going to do about this? And are you working with Wes Moore? What is the plan? There's a website that's got a little bit of information on it that kind of laments that it's happened, but I don't see the hyper criticism and the histrionics that I'm almost certain we would see if this was a Republican governor. I just flagged that for you. Now, somebody who's covered a lot of stories and may be able to offer some perspective. I do think Fox News has covered the story a little bit. I haven't seen it in a lot of other places, is the chief Washington correspondent for Fox News, my old friend Mike Emanuel, who joins us this morning. You all have covered this story, right?
We have, boy, and it is disgusting. More than 200 million gallons of raw sewage flowing into the Potomac River. And to keep in mind, like, obviously it's not July when tons of people have their boats out there, but like pretty much year round, there are crew teams from the local universities out there training. And so, you hear the E. coli amount is 250 times the recreational limit. It just makes you wonder how long it's going to take to clean up. And of course, here in Washington, the blame game is underway. And so there you go. But I think some good news. President Trump says FEMA is going to help. And obviously, it has a huge impact on all three major constituencies, Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. And so it's time they stop pointing the finger, and hopefully I'll get to work on fixing it as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, if you ever felt guilty about peeing in your neighbor's pool, maybe this puts it in perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
And so just tell me what you've observed is, and I want to be fair to Abigail Spanberger. She's only been governor of Virginia for 1 month today. Is she getting hit with this, or is Wes Moore being hit with the blame?
It seems more Wes Moore at this point, from everything I've seen and read and heard from different folks. He's obviously been the established president. He also, some are thinking maybe a potential 2028 presidential candidate. And so this is a real life crisis on his watch. And so people are wondering, how's he handling it? What's he doing? And to your point, while I was in the on deck circle about, liberals would be jumping up and down, going crazy if it were a Republican governor, saying Republicans don't care about the environment. I think you're spot on there. Not expressing a political opinion, but just from experience covering Washington for the last quarter century, that would be kind of the knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, if only that governor cared about the environment. And so largely he's gotten a pass, and I think we're all going to pay a price for it here in our nation's capital, particularly over the summer when the smell picks up and the bacteria may explode unless there's treatments I'm not aware of that can clear it up a lot sooner.
Yeah. How did Westmore remind me, Mike? And I'm assuming that this stuff crosses your desk. So tell me if it doesn't. I don't want to put you on the spot. But remember up in Baltimore when the ship hit the bridge and the bridge collapsed? I was wrong. I made the prediction that the port would be closed for months and months and months and months, and that the incompetent boobs, uh, Democrat boobs, I will be political, up there would not get the thing cleared. And I was mistaken. They did reopen the port pretty quickly. But that bridge, there is a delay in getting the bridge up. Are you tracking on that story at all? And again, forgive me if I'm asking you a question that you're not covering directly.
Yeah, I haven't covered it recently, but I have heard that there are some delays and certainly some concerns about the timing in terms of getting it up and running again. Obviously, a major thoroughfare for
Yeah.
getting goods and products up and down the I-95 corridor. And so there is great concern about getting it up and running as quickly as possible. And I have heard some grumbling that, he may need to roll up his sleeves and really get in there, not just go for the photo op, but to actually oversee it and demand that it open as soon as possible, and not allow delays to continue for an extended period of time.
Yeah, that's a real leadership test for the
Mhm.
governor of Maryland, Westmore. Are you a photo op governor, or are you someone, when there's a crisis, you do make sure that it moves quickly? And I think that's a fair litmus test of whether you can deliver. It's your
Absolutely.
state. Yeah. Um, so we're in a shutdown of some sort,
Yes, sir.
and it's not getting the same attention as the previous shutdown. I guess it's a partial shutdown, so it's not as dramatic as the one that was, I think, done for political reasons right around election time last year. But where do we stand on the shutdown? Is this thing going to be resolved?
Well, I've heard there have been good faith discussions back and forth between Republicans and Democrats trying to solve the issue, try to get Homeland Security back up and running. The
Mhm.
ironic thing is the main thing the Democrats are upset about, ICE, is not impacted because ICE has been funded for the next few years thanks to a massive package that Congress passed last year. And so they can do what they want to do. They've got resources, but there are other aspects of the Department of Homeland Security, such as if you go to the airport, the people screening you as you go in may be working without a paycheck once again. And so there are a lot of folks in other aspects of Homeland Security who are suffering right now while ICE may be a political football here in Washington. And so, typically, we say at the end of a government shutdown, there are no winners in a government shutdown. And in this case, certainly the people who are working on the front lines for the Department of Homeland Security are going to pay the heaviest price. And we'll see the impact on the public. If there is an impact on the public, that can obviously get lawmakers to the table a little quicker. But yeah, I mean, Democrats are calling for some changes to the way ICE operates, and so they're holding up funding for the rest of the department. And we'll see if they can wrap this up soon. Obviously, the DMV area lawmakers who have a lot of constituents who work for these various agencies are gravely concerned about it. And obviously, if you're flying in places like Reagan National or Dulles or Richmond or wherever you may be, you're concerned about the efficiency and the safety with airline travel,
Yeah.
as all Americans are. But
Yeah.
hopefully they can figure this out and stop using this as a weapon against, to try to make a political point.
Yeah, I mean, government shutdowns. This is not the way to govern. It's just it's bad governance. If you were doing this in your business, you'd be out of business pretty quickly, and your customers wouldn't appreciate it, and your employees wouldn't appreciate it, and you as the boss. It's just a totally different situation when you're not actually selling something, and you have to be responsive to the audience. So I hope it'll sober some people up.
Yeah, and as you know, John, the entire House is on the ballot in November, a third of the Senate. And so it makes you wonder if voters are going to say, vote the bums out because, like, they can't figure it out. They're sitting in their respective corners, speechifying and yelling at one another, but they're
Hmm.
not governing. They're not, keeping the lights on. And so, you wonder at some point if incumbents may pay a price.
Well, will we even see incumbents on the ballot here in Virginia with the redistricting plan that I guess Virginians are now going to decide on April 21st and the 45-day voting period leading up to that? This seems like really an egregious abuse of power by I think that here in Virginia. Is anybody in D.C. concerned that this is, given that this is a constitutional amendment in Virginia, not just a law, not just a tradition, that this crosses a line, what we're seeing in Virginia?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who feel like it's overreach, and the defense I've heard when I've asked Democrats about it is, well, Republicans started this, and so we're finishing it, and
Mhm.
so they point to Texas and the efforts that didn't go anywhere in Indiana, but I guess Texas starting it off, and then California responding, and then it's kind of set off this domino effect in other places, and so, but I mean, you're going from a potentially a 6 Democrat, 5 Republican split in the House of Representatives to potentially 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. And when you consider the split right now in the House of Representatives is so tight, that alone would be enough to give Democrats the Speaker's gavel and all the chairmanships across the House of Representatives. Obviously, after this election, the math will be different, but that it's pretty stunning, 6-5 to 10-1, and so obviously we will see what voters in the Commonwealth ultimately decide. But yeah, it's been a bit of a shouting match here in Washington, and Democrats countering like, well, you guys started it, and so there you go.
This morning, I woke up and saw that Jesse Jackson had passed away. I met Jesse Jackson a couple of times back in when he was really, on fire, raising hell in the Capitol. I mean, I hesitate to call him a race hustler on the day he died. I don't think that's polite. But how are people reacting to his death in Washington? He's been in decline the last couple of years. I saw him in a wheelchair a few years ago, I think.
Yeah, he was originally diagnosed with Parkinson's, and evidently he had a rarer condition than Parkinson's, which had kind of the similar impacts to your motor skills in the early phases of it. His
Mm.
family announced his passing, but didn't get into great detail about the
Hmm.
final cause of death today. But look, I think a lot of people are remembering him as the African American guy who ran for president in '84 and '88, and that was
Right.
big back then, and I think there may be, to be very fair to him, I think there may be an argument to be made that perhaps there wouldn't have been a Barack Obama without a Jesse Jackson out there first, and so you're a historian, so I'm curious what your take on that would be. But yeah, he was a controversial figure in a lot of ways because in a lot of ways people felt like corporate America felt like he would show up and basically ask for money. Otherwise, we're going to
He'd
boycott your
harass them.
company. Yeah.
Do you think that's fair? My recollection of the 80s and 90s was that was a pattern, and that is what people told me. It's like, oh God, if Jesse Jackson shows up, get out your checkbook because you got to get him to go away. Now, I don't know. He never did it to me
Right.
or anything that I was directly associated with, but that was the story.
Exactly. And look, I think on the day of his passing, a lot of people remember him as being a skilled orator, somebody who
Yes.
tried to pick up the mantle from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Hmm.
And so, look, I think he had some positive impacts. But yeah, he was a controversial guy, and in some regards, and fathered a child out of wedlock with somebody who worked for his organization. Obviously, he had a son who went to prison. That's not directly his fault, but that obviously gets a lot of attention when you're Jesse Jackson's son. And so, yeah, a complex figure, but I think a lot of people are reflecting back on the era that was in the 1980s when he stood on the stage in '84 and '88, ultimately losing to Mondale in '84 and Dukakis in '88, and then taking a senior position in the kind of the Democratic Party in terms of showing up at the conventions to basically
Hmm.
say, this is who I'm backing, and trying to rally African Americans behind that Democratic nominee in future cycles.
I remember watching those speeches. He got the crowd really with him.
Oh yeah,
That is an achievement as
no doubt.
somebody who's trying to move the audience. Mike Emanuel, the chief Washington correspondent for Fox News. I'm appreciative. I hope I'll see you in person up in DC soon.
I'd love
Thanks,
it.
Mike.
Thanks so much, John. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Yeah, when Jesse Jackson Jr. got elected to Congress, God, what year was that? Let's see. Let's just look real quick. The internet is an amazing thing. If I can open it. Jesse Jackson Jr. Congress. When he got elected, I remember thinking, I mean, I didn't know anything about the guy except he was the son of. So he was born in 65. He was there from 95 until 2012. So I remember in 1995. Oh yeah, I was working at Channel 8. Maybe I was on the morning show then, and I remember saying, "Gosh, this has got to be a really proud moment for Jesse Jackson Sr." Right, that he's run for president, that his entire movement has been about equality for black citizens, and now his son, where was he? Was he Illinois? Let's see. The kid was born in South Carolina, but yeah, Illinois' second district. So it's Illinois. But I thought that was a real achievement. And who knows? One of the bad things about that I've observed over the years is people going to Congress is you can have good people who go to Congress, and the environment is pretty rough. And you have to have a mindset, I think, of self-deprecation, um, or it'll get to you. I mean, you can start to believe your own press. You usually have a couple of staffers who are out there telling everybody you're the greatest thing ever, and which is generally not true. But you can start to believe it, and everybody kisses your butt, um, because they need your vote. So you have people start to show up, and they want to take you places, they want to do things for you. And there's this, the rules have certainly changed. And I was working there as an intern in the House of Representatives in 1992, and I don't recall there being any rules at that point. I mean, maybe you couldn't accept a cash bribe on the sidewalk, but it was definitely a different situation than when I was there as a staffer in the Senate in 2004, 2006, 2007. And now I think people feel like they have beaten back the bribery component, but I'm not sure that's true. I remember, and I told this story on WRVA when I was doing the morning show there. There was a woman who had a very, very big, I think, lucrative arrangement with a major company, and the senator was, I mean, at least he had one vote on one of these issues, and I guess she was moving around the Senate trying to find people that she could talk to. Well, somehow she found me. I don't remember how I first met her, but I remember going to dinner with her. She had made such a big deal. Oh, she's getting all these people together to go to dinner. I went to dinner, and then she wanted to pay the check, and it was at a really expensive steakhouse. Very, very expensive steakhouse. I mean, I bet you it was 152, and this is in 2006 or something. $150, $200 per person at the table. When you had the steak and the sides and a drink or two. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. You're not paying for me, because if you pay for me, I think at that time there was no doubt that crossed the line on the basic numbers of what you could accept from someone. I think at that point, if you accepted anything more than a hamburger at McDonald's or a baseball cap, you were in trouble. So clearly a big meal like that. And it wasn't someone, there was always this exception for personal friends that you'd known prior to arriving in the Congress. I think I don't know what the actual term was. But I went and paid directly for that and got a receipt. And had my portion of the meal removed from the ticket, because I was like, you're not going to hold that over me in the future and then try to manipulate my relationship with the senator or with anybody else in Washington. Heck no. That's not going to happen. Now, I don't know. I was a little paranoid. I still am paranoid that people are going to try to pull a fast one on me. And life has proven that it's wise to be paranoid about that stuff. But who knows what the deal was with Jesse Jackson Jr. when he arrived, and who knows what the real motivation was for Jesse Jackson Sr. when he got started in the movement that he was such an important part of. I just think this stuff, if you're in it too long, it's really corrupting. Financially, yeah, other people are making a lot of money. You're not. I'm certainly an example of that. Seems like I'm the only person after last year who's in a much worse financial situation than I was 12 months ago when I first started running for lieutenant governor. I mean, what a disaster. What a horrible decision it was financially to even get involved in all of this. I don't regret it, but I look and I think of all the money I could have made in the private sector if I'd really devoted as much energy a year of my life that I did to this, and it stinks. And I think after you've been through that a couple of times, you either bail and say to hell with this, or maybe you're corrupted and you start thinking, well, it's not fair that I'm losing out and other people are getting money. So you start to bend your morals. And if you're there too long, I think it's really hard not to say, hey, everybody's doing it and everybody's found a way. And, oh, I can get my spouse involved and they can make money, when we all know that the reason they're making money is because you're the person in politics. It's a weird, weird dynamic. And finding people who are, I don't know, have the moral certitude and fortitude and a spine, and can keep it for year after year after year, especially as they watch other people move past them and have resources that they don't have. I think that's really tough. That's not unique to the United States. We actually do a pretty good job of it compared to some of the countries I've been to and worked in, where bribery is just, it's a daily thing. But I do think we're on the verge of losing that moral compass here in Virginia and in the United States. We should be careful about that. All right, let's take a break. But before we take the break, let me tell you about the Virginia Forum, sponsored by the Virginia Council. The Virginia Forum is coming up on Friday, the 27th of this month. And it is really going to be a remarkable presentation from Jamie Franklin, who was from Northern California, went to the University of California at Berkeley in 2020. But you've seen Jamie, I'm sure, on Fox News. She's on there all the time. And she's founded this group called the Conservator, a lifestyle brand dedicated to empowering the next generation of young conservative Christian women. And how often do we hear that Republicans have lost the female vote? And Jamie is determined for that not to occur. So she is the speaker at the next Virginia Forum on Friday, the 27th of February. It'll be held at the Glen Allen Cultural Arts Center. If you've been to any of the Virginia Forums before, it's a great experience. We had Douglas Murray and Andy No and just some fantastic folks. Kevin Sorbo, the actor, G. Van Fleet. It's a great opportunity for you to hear and meet in person some of the people who are influencing the conservative movement, who would not ever be invited to appear on, let's say, other stages around Virginia or around the country because they have a conservative perspective. And this is our opportunity to show support from them, hear them, and for you to meet them personally. So go to thevirginiacouncil.org, thevirginiacouncil.org, and purchase your ticket for the Virginia Forum coming up on Friday, the 27th of February. So it's right around the corner, not this week, but next week. And Jamie Franklin is the speaker at the Virginia Forum. And I think it's going to be great. And I'll get a chance to interview her live on stage at the conclusion of her remarks. All right, let's take a quick break. We're back with more in just a moment. Patty Lyman, the Republican National Committee woman for Virginia, will be with us in just a couple of minutes on the Reid Revolution. Back on the Reid Revolution on this Tuesday morning, and I will tell you, there is a lot of talk in Republican circles. The people who were kind of checked out last year or disgruntled or mad or whatever, they're realizing, oh my God, the consequences of not voting in 2025 are coming back to bite Republicans really, really fast. And that's concerning. That should raise a red flag. So when we talk to Patty Lyman, the Republican National Committee woman, we're going to discuss this really nefarious redistricting plan and gerrymandering plan that the Democrats have pushed through. And I'll play for you at least one of the ads that's been created to try to educate the public and convince them, even if you're a Democrat, that this is a bad idea. I mean, look, don't talk to me about democracy. And this is what democracy looks like. And we're protecting democracy if, when you have the opportunity to silence your political opponents, you go ahead and take it. I mean, really. We're all jockeying for votes. We're all trying to win. I get that. But in Virginia, unlike other states, we passed a constitutional amendment, not a rule, not a bureaucratic directive, not a law signed by one governor that could be undone by the next General Assembly and changed by the next governor, but a constitutional amendment, which over 65% of the people of Virginia said, this is important. We do not want the politicians drawing the lines. And you do a constitutional amendment, you change the governing document of the state because you're serious about it. And it's about Virginia, not about Texas, not about California, not about the bad behavior of the Democrats up in Massachusetts. It's about Virginia and how we want to govern the state. And I will warn everybody that if you want to nationalize politics, like every insult that happens in Sacramento, California, we're going to respond to it in Virginia. Every drug dealer or drug addict or crazy person who gets killed in Minneapolis, we're going to personalize it in Virginia. Every problem that they have in New York City, we're going to respond in Virginia. We're making a mistake. There's a reason we have 50 states, and it's so that people of common interest in those geographic areas, minimally, but hypothetically, culturally, can govern themselves. One of the problems we've got in Virginia is now we have the geography of the state of Virginia, but there's a real cultural disconnect between the people who live in Northern Virginia and the people who live, let's say, in Central Virginia, where I live, or in Southwest Virginia, where it's a much more rural community. And, there are sometimes a couple of miles between houses. And I think it's reasonable to say that they don't want the same policies that are in place in the big cities. And how do you navigate that? And if you don't leave people alone, by and large, unless they're harming someone else, if you don't leave people alone to make their own judgments, then what's the point? If you just want to be dictated to from Washington, then okay, that's a different type of government than the one we've had here. And not allowing the states to make those decisions is problematic. I wouldn't extend it to the point where you ignore federal law, but that's not what we're talking about here. I don't want you to call me a hypocrite about Minneapolis. We have laws, and immigration is a federal issue, not a state issue. And we should obey the laws wherever we are about immigration into the country and who's a citizen of the United States. That's a federal issue. And it's just none of it makes sense anymore. And when you start picking and choosing how you're going to govern and which laws you're going to obey and which laws you're not, whether you're going to have a sanctuary city here over this issue, and whether you're going to restrict people's fundamental rights in this community but not in this community, I think you're setting yourself up for a conflict which eventually is going to lead to a civil war. Eventually, it's going to lead to a civil war. And I've been saying for about a decade, privately, to friends of mine, I'm really worried that the Civil War is here, and the left is more than happy to harm businesses. I think that's very clear, but also to harm individuals, and in some cases, even to kill individuals. And they're using the extremists in their own sphere to do that dirty work with a wink and a nod and a lack of aggressive condemnation of that bad behavior. That's not going to work for us long term. And I'm just telling you, at some point, there are going to be people who say, we've been holding back. We have not gone after the crazy leftists, and they're gonna decide that they're gonna go after them, and then you're gonna have a joined political civil war where people are really hurting each other. And I don't know whether it'll be a guerrilla warfare in the cities, or what the way will see this manifest itself. But I mean, I think we're really close to that being a problem, and it's time for responsible leaders to say we all have to obey the law. We all have to be careful about the language we're using and what we're doing and whether we're being fair to each other. And I don't see that type of leadership. Certainly not in the Democrat Party. I don't see that kind of leadership. I think we've got a major problem on our hands. So why don't we take a quick break? We will come back with more, and we'll talk to Patty Lyman, the Republican National Committee woman for Virginia, in just a moment on the Reid Revolution.
At this point, which if people want to see, we can put it up on the screen, but...
All right, let's see. I wanted to play this video, producer Dan, if it's possible, of the commercial that has been, at least the first commercial that's been done to try to convince Virginia Republicans to turn out and vote no on the gerrymandering proposal that's out there. Do you have that?
I actually don't have that. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was part of the show itinerary today. But yeah, I can get that for us for tomorrow for sure.
The difference in ideology.
Okay. Well, then let's kill that and go to Patty Lyman.
Patty is with us.
Oh yes,
I can hear her. Can you hear her?
Patty popping up for the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Okay.
But I'm going to hide myself and let you guys go ahead and talk.
Slightly over 62 this month. Let's put the truck. Yeah, 62%.
Hey, Patty. Well, you have a great chandelier in your living room or dining room. Beautiful chandelier. Something's weird with that. Something is weird with her camera, and I don't want to move on to the next segment if that's easily fixable. So, producer Dan, if you can let me know whether that's fixable or not, then I will make a good judgment.
Let me check on her, and I'll get back to you ASAP. So hold on, I'll be right back with you.
All righty. Well, I'll move on to another topic for a moment, which may eat up a little bit of time here, but it is one that's controversial and probably warrants some discussion. And maybe you saw the video of the shooting at the ice skating rink the other day. It turns out that once again, this shooting has been carried out by somebody who is gender confused and who appears to either be a cross-dresser or someone who is on some sort of medication to transition, although I think we've got to stop using that word. I don't have a better word yet, but we've got to come up with a better word than transition, because that implies that you can transition. If you're a biological male, that somehow injecting yourself with hormones turns you into a woman. It doesn't. It gives you the aesthetic, perhaps, and it may change some of the hormonal balance that your body would normally have, but you don't become a woman. So you're not really transitioning. And I think a number of you have pointed out in a lot of different situations, the left is very masterful in the way they claim the language and start having a psychological impact on how people see the issues that they care about. And then, of course, they refuse to allow conservatives to recalibrate the language at all. So you wind up, we're actually talking about biological men versus biological women, which is absurd because there is no parsing of this. You are a man. You may be an effeminate man. You may be a masculine woman. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Whatever, try to be nice to everybody, but that's not changing your actual gender. It's not changing your sex. And we've now allowed all of these people to come in and recalibrate the entire society and act like this is normal, to suggest that a male can become a woman. You may dress like a woman. You may behave like some stereotype of a woman, but you ain't a woman. And we all need to deal with reality. And for centuries, if not millennia, the goal of educated, civilized people has been to find objective truth, enlightenment. And it's almost like suddenly in the last 5 or 6 years, the entire point of our existence has changed, where we're not worried about objective truth. We're jettisoning that. It's all about emotions. And it's not about everybody's emotions. It's only about the left that have somehow gotten hold of these institutions that used to offer the direction for society, sometimes correctly, sometimes not correctly, but they used to be the grounding pillars of society, taking them over and forcing a new vision for basic humanity and society on people. And it's backfiring on us. And how is it backfiring? I give you the series of killings that have taken place in the last couple of months. And no one ever, you can just kind of tell when it's a trans person or someone who's gender confused because no one wants to talk about it. You see somebody who, honestly looks like a man in the pictures, but you're not allowed to actually say that this is what's going on. And so this latest killing, where this individual apparently murdered their own family members and then started shooting at other people at a ice skating rink, at some point, objective, honest people need to be alarmed by this and say, hey, not okay. We're not going to do this anymore. We have made a mistake. We've experimented with this culturally. We've lied to each other, and we're not going to do it anymore. And this trans killer phenomenon that we're seeing can be stopped. And we can still let you be an effeminate guy or a masculine woman. Again, I'm about as open-minded as they come. I'm just not going to participate in a lie. And I wanted to flag that because I want to give you permission. If you are a normal person who's an open-minded person, who's a nice person, you need to have permission to draw some lines and say, this is no longer about how you live in your own home or the relationships you have in your own home. This is fundamentally eroding safety and stability in our society. And there are moments where you have to rein this stuff back in. And as a gay man myself, I feel like I have an obligation to be one of the people to say that, because I'm not going along with it. And I think it's crazy. And I think at this point we should look and say it is doing damage. So let's not just tap the brakes, let's slam the brakes on this and fix the situation. All right. Patty Lyman, the Republican National Committee woman for Virginia, is with us, and I'm glad to see you and to get a chance to talk to you, Patty. And can I start with the issue that I think has gotten a lot of people motivated, the same people who weren't motivated apparently in 2025, this Democrat gerrymandering? It's kind of a crass proposal. What's your reaction to it?
Well, good morning, John. It's
Good
always
morning.
a delight to see you as well, and to meet producer Dan. You guys have a good thing going here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I call it. I call it rigged districts. Stop rigged districts. I know they're using the term gerrymandering. A lot of people don't really know what that
I
means,
know.
but
Yeah.
you know what? It stopped the cheating. That really is what it is. We have to vote no on this. You know, John, they've been, ever since they pulled this stunt back in November, we've known the Democrats wanted to put this up for a referendum. But frankly, we didn't know for sure until last Friday that there was going to be a referendum. Literally, because it's been, you know, it was in court. We had a court decision, a very sound court decision that found what this referendum was unconstitutional, very sound decision. And what we had hoped was that the Virginia Supreme Court would rule on it, look at the reasoning of the Tazewell judge and say, yep, the way this has been done is unconstitutional. They didn't follow the rules. That wouldn't stop the referendum forever. It would simply postpone it until the next cycle, so then they could put it through and at least put it up for a fair vote. Instead, unfortunately, our Virginia Supreme Court determined that they would force the referendum vote to take place on April 21st, and then they'd decide later whether it was legal.
Well, it seems very clear that the process as laid out in the law has not been followed. The bases have not been touched as the law requires. You're an attorney. Are you surprised that the Supreme Court is punting at the moment, just kind of letting this thing go by? I mean, apparently it's what, a $5 million endeavor to hold this event. I still think that's a lot of money.
Well,
and it's wrong.
And that's just the money that the state would be putting out. I did something, frankly, this irresponsible. They declined to do what is their obligation to do, and that's very disappointing. Still, though, even after it takes place, they could still rule that it's unconstitutional because all the law points to it being unconstitutional. But then at that point, depending which way it goes, if they overturn it, then they're having to overturn an election that just took place. And a big part of our argument is that we don't want to be overturning the referendum that took place in 2020. So I don't know. I hope they don't make a political decision.
Well, gosh, did I lose Patty? That's frustrating.
We seem to have lost
her. Yeah, I saw some of the video breaking up. Will you want to try to get her back?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. So this has been it's been a Fitz and Fitz interview, but let me see if I can get her back here. But
you know, we had 3 weeks or 4 weeks with no technical problems, Dan.
No,
and now it's like nonstop. Ever since I went to Florida and came back, wonder what that's all about. Yeah, see if you can get her. You know, here's another issue, and you know, Patty will tell you what she thinks. I don't think she's really scared of people, but it is interesting to me. A lot of the attorneys that I have talked to. You're talking about the Supreme Court of Virginia. You're talking about courts. I mean, I don't know that everything they deal with will go to the Supreme Court, but it's the legal community, and there's a certain deference that lawyers have to pay to the system, even when it appears that the system has gotten it wrong. And I don't want to go so far as to say is corrupt, but I mean, there's a problem here. If the law says you got to touch first base, second base, third base, and home before the point can go on the board, then why are we not requiring that? You know, I mean, I can't fix some backroom deal in some county, whether it's in Northern Virginia, whether it's in Southwest Virginia. There's nothing. I mean, I'm not in the rooms. I have to count on people to be honest and fair and try to demand that of people all over the state. But when it gets to the point where it's in front of the courts, as a non-attorney, it's just so frustrating to me that it appears very clear what the process is. And, you know, I'm sure that Democrats wish they had started this earlier, or they had notified people the correct way, or they had, you know, they're the ones that picked the 45 days of voting. Certainly wasn't me. I don't think we should have 45 days of voting. They chose 45 days of voting, so there's some consequences to that. And it's
No.
frustrating to me to see the courts not enforce the rules and laws that the Democrats themselves put on the books back when they changed everything in 2020, even if that, in this situation, causes them to have to wait another 2 years. Patty's back, I think. We got to work on that internet connection up in Northern Virginia.
And let's impeach his cabinet, and let's impeach every good judge that he put on the court. But you know what? So I had hoped the litigation would stall this off for a couple of years, but guess what? It didn't. So now we have to win. There's no plan B. We have to win this referendum. Tell you that our new party chair, Jeff Reid, has hit the ground running. Last Friday, within a few hours of this decision in the state, 125 unit chairs, every member of the state central committee. And they were telling us what activities we want to be taking place in the units in the districts. You know, John, some of the districts to fight this rigging of the congressional districts, and process, which unfortunately is not what we've had in the last 5 years in the Republican Party of Virginia. Mm-hmm. It has been a top-down control by our former governor on win as a bottom-up grassroots party. So all the energy and the action is going to be at the grassroots, and our state party is going to be.
Yeah.
I'm also hearing a lot from people instantly saying, well, how much money is the from this outside group and that outside group? In 2021, the RNC gave us a tremendous amount of money. In 2020, some of the laws had changed over elections, but in 2025, we did get significant resources from. I don't know when in Virginia, all of a sudden, the first response of Republicans became, what are they going to give us? Yes, they'll be helping. Yes, as soon as we have a problem, let's run to the government and ask them to show groups, the whole country, what we can do to fight for our state. Virginians will lead this fight. Virginians will win this fight. We need to show that we're giving our very best and that we will be good stewards over everything that's provided to us. And that is what will be the engine of getting the outside help that we need. I completely believe that, John.
Yeah. Well, it's going to take some money to get television ads and radio ads on to motivate the hundreds of thousands of Democrats, kind of soft Democrats and moderates who may be persuaded that this is an overreach by the Democrat Party. I mean, I think the folks that I encountered very often on the campaign trail who have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, who just hate, if Donald Trump says it's a good morning, they will take the opposite opinion. They're going to go out and vote because they're trying to make a statement against President Trump. But there are bound to be some people who look at a constitutional amendment and understand the weight and gravity of that, and who remember the arguments about why we took this away from the politicians and said, let's try to come up with a fair system that can be the model for the whole country. And if we undo that, that's a really bad signal domestically in Virginia, and I think for the citizenry across the country, that everything's going to devolve rapidly into a fight between the states, and I don't think we want that.
No. It didn't go so well the last time. But John, I'm a person. You know, Richard Nixon said you can't win an election with only your base, but you sure can't win it without your base. If we had turned out all the Republican based voters in this state last year, we would have had a very, very different outcome. We need to make sure that we turn out our people. We've got to make sure that we do that. And at the same time, that we make persuasive arguments to people who are persuadable. Now, I do not go along with the idea that was floated out yesterday, which is let's trash President Trump and apologize for him and show the Democrats how much we don't like him, and then maybe they'll vote with us. I'm sorry, that's not where we win. We win by bringing out our base and then by showing reasonable people in the middle why what we're saying is fair and right for them and their family.
Do you think there need to be two different messages? One to motivate the core Trump base in Southwest that didn't turn out en masse last year, and make them realize if we lose in Virginia, it's not just about Virginia. You're tipping the House of Representatives in Washington towards the Democrats with probably significant numbers, and they will brutalize Trump. I mean, he won't get anything done in the last 2 years. That should motivate them, and then have a different message in Northern Virginia where maybe you can peel off 5, 6, 7% of the voters who aren't fond of President Trump, but are more concerned about the type of state they're going to live in going forward. Two different messages.
John, I think we're going to have a dozen different messages because there are dozens of good reasons to vote against this amendment. The beautiful thing about our chairman's push to have this be grassroots driven is that what's going to persuade people in the 5th and the 6th and the 9th district are very different arguments than what will persuade them in the 2nd district and in the 3rd and in the 10th and the 11th and the 8th. And we are going to be free to work with those messages. We're going to be free to do that. That's why it has to be grassroots driven. That's why people saying, why hasn't RPV put ads on the air yet? Well, give us a minute to breathe, and everyone's raising money right now, and all kinds of different groups are going to be putting ads out and signs. They're making postcards. There are templates that anyone can get a hold of to make signs and put up signs. Literature, palm cards. There's going to be calling. There's going to be door knocking. And we need to look at and listen to our audience.
March 6th, the voting starts, and it runs all the way through April 21st. It does appear, when you crunch the numbers for the last couple election cycles, that the Democrats have really effectively used this mail-in ballot concept to their benefit. Is there a way to fix that for Republicans going forward? I don't mean fix it like the fix is in, but get more Republicans to make it easy on themselves to have the ballot mailed to them and then one way or another get it back to the courthouse?
Well, there's absolutely an effort underway now to get more of our ID'd voters on permanent absentee ballots, and to remind them that the ballot is coming and to tell them they need to send it in immediately or we'll come pick it up. Last year, I've done a lot of work with Turning Point over several years. I really, really wanted Turning Point to come to Virginia and teach us how to ballot chase here. I wanted that to teach them to do that. But unfortunately, because of certain events that took place last spring and our ticket got sabotaged, it was very clear to Turning Point and to other groups that could have helped us that their efforts were better spent somewhere else because, the top of our party wasn't really supporting our ticket. But you know what? Even God can't change the past. That was yesterday. And today we need to learn how to ballot chase. And I am reaching out to Turning Point to ask them, can we get a team to come here and teach us how to chase absentee ballots?
When you talk about ballot chasing, I think I know what you're referring to. The ballots go out in the mail. They arrive, in theory, on the 6th or 7th of March, before the 45-day or right at the start of the 45-day voting. And then a lot of people see them in the mail. They put it on their dresser. They put it in the stack of bills that they don't want to deal with. And then weeks start to go by, and you can identify who's returned those ballots and who hasn't. And what are the Democrats doing that we should be doing? When they ballot chase, do we know what they're up to? What are they doing that's so effective?
I'm not an expert on ballot chasing, but what they do, they have a machine. They have people who are activated. They have groups. For instance, the labor union members. The labor union members know how to be activated and to make sure everyone's got their absentee ballot, to get them signed up if they haven't signed up yet. I mean, they systematically do it, and they go door to door to door. What you do is you divide people up among volunteers that you have, and everybody has people they're responsible for, and they form a relationship with those people. They're following up with them. They are on them until they get that ballot turned in. And it's a machine. And we have, unfortunately, here in Virginia and in many other places, Republicans have not put the effort into building that infrastructure, but we are going to do it full force this time to the greatest extent that we can. And we're going to utilize the people in the units at the grassroots level, not just asking them to hand out sample ballots, but asking them to help us identify the hundreds of thousands of Republicans who turned out in 2024, but didn't turn out in 2025. And we're going to be identifying them one by one. That's the plan of our new chair, Jeff Ryer.
I wonder if Republican voters have an appreciation for what happens in the state politically if this supposedly temporary redistricting happens and you lose a Rob Whitman, a Jen Kiggins, you name the Republican congressperson who's out there fighting for both Republican principles, and then in the larger sense, these people who Ben Klein, they've gained a lot of status and seniority within the Congress, and all that is wiped out. Do you think there's an appreciation, even in Democrat circles, for what that will mean economically for the state?
We have to bring that message home to the voters. You know, in 12-step programs, they talk about saying people have to hit bottom. And part of what they do in those programs is they try to raise the bottom to meet the person. We need to raise that bottom. We need to explain to people in a way that they can feel it, what it's going to do to them if this happens.
I think it'll be pretty dramatic. I keep using Rob Whitman, who is my congressman, as the example, but he's number 2 on armed services.
He's very important. He is central. He is key. And to our national defense, to the quality of our national defense, the person who chairs the Armed Services Committee matters.
Yeah. And we're on the verge of losing that if we don't win. Immigration, and I'll end with this, Patty, but immigration is a motivating factor. I would argue that this is the reason that Donald Trump got the nomination the first time.
100%.
Back in 2016, he was willing to talk about the dangers of illegal immigration economically and culturally in a blunt way that everybody else was scared to do. And people gravitated to him because they saw what was happening in their own communities, and they realized we're being fleeced and losing money. And why do I have to obey the law, but these people don't have to obey the law? The hypocrisy was pretty significant. A loss in Virginia can really impact those federal policies and how they are enforced or not enforced going forward.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the first thing you saw Spanberger do was forbid local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE. And that's the reason ICE has been having to go into neighborhoods to arrest people. And by the way, these are not people who all of a sudden are getting arrested. Oh, no. These are people who've already had their due process. They've already been issued final orders of removal, and they are fugitives from final orders of removal. And when Abigail Spanberger refuses to let ICE people come and pick these people up when they're in the jail, they endanger the whole community. Immigration is absolutely the reason President Trump got elected the first time. And it's the reason he got elected the second time. There's no question about it. And I have to say, I'm extremely disappointed at the actions that the administration ended up taking by retreating from Minnesota. I understand there are reasons for it. I don't doubt Tom Homan. Tom Homan is a great soldier and a great man, and he's doing what he's ordered to do. But that was a terrible day for him because he knows the danger this country is in. And I'm very, very concerned now because here's the thing. The rioters speak really, really loudly, but the people that spoke more loudly were the 77 million people who voted for President Trump. And they voted for President Trump largely for him to keep doing what we were doing in Minnesota, which is identifying criminal illegal aliens and removing them. And unfortunately, now they know anytime we try to do that in any other blue city, all they have to do is riot. And so I am just praying that somehow we will be able to reconstitute what we were doing and certainly get out the most dangerous people. Now, I'm of the belief that anyone who is a fugitive from a final order of removal needs to be removed from the U.S. because I'm an immigration lawyer. Every day I represent people who followed the rules, who've been waiting for years and years and years to come here and respect our rules and respect our country. So that is a very, very important issue. And federally,
let me ask you about that though. Since you are an immigration attorney and you've worked with, I don't know how many people, have any of your clients who are trying to do this the right way had a bad interaction with ICE? Have they been erroneously picked up or deported? Are you involved in any of those cases at the moment?
No, they have not had any problems at all. People can show, for instance, if they have asylum pending, they can show they have asylum pending. Some of my clients, because, if someone came across the border illegally, they do have a removal hearing. They have a right to representation. Some of my clients entered illegally and they were released on bond or parole, but DHS is going out and picking a lot of them up, which they have every right to do, and they're detaining them. So I'm doing a lot of detained hearings now. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these people do have legitimate asylum cases. I do my best for those that do have legitimate cases to try to get those for them. But there's a lot of fraud in the system, and part of
that's
the
the
cost,
problem, isn't it?
Yeah, part of the cost of doing this is that there are going to be some people who may mean well, but they still end up being removed. But no, I've had no instances at all of DHS wrongly identifying someone as removable and trying to remove them. No.
This is part of the frustration I have, is that I don't think that it is compassionate or humane or decent to allow the system to be abused in mass, because the people who actually deserve to be treated in a certain way and have an opportunity to stay here wind up getting lumped in with all the people who are taking advantage of the system. And then you're also harming Virginia citizens, American citizens, who are being undercut. It's not humane and nice to Virginians to allow them to be paid, quarters on the dollar because the illegals are, undercutting what their salary should be.
President Trump won on putting Americans first, period. And the more that he sticks to that, those goals and that message, the more successful we will be this year. I remember, and you're old enough to remember this too, when George Bush came into office in 1989, and remember, he promised no new taxes. He came into office and the Democrats in Congress got a hold of him. The next thing you know, he was agreeing to raise taxes.
I know.
What he did, John, is he turned his back on he gave in. He sided with the people who would never support him under any circumstances, while he betrayed the people who would never have otherwise turned their backs on him.
Yeah.
He did the opposite, and I don't want to see my favorite president doing the same thing.
Yeah, that is an important historical reference point. I mean, George H.W. Bush went out and said, read my lips, no new taxes. They're going to push me, and I'm going to say new taxes, no new taxes. They're going to try to throttle me, and I'm going to say no new taxes. Read my lips, no new taxes. He's very clear about it, similar to the way Donald Trump has been on this issue. And when you back away from that, people are humiliated. And nowadays, honestly, Patty, the social consequences of supporting President Trump are, I mean, they're real. People that you've known for years who won't speak to you. Yesterday, there was a woman that I've known. I knew her when she was a teenage girl. I mean, it was unbelievable. I don't know whether she'd been drinking or what, but she just went after me. And I tried to be polite, like, okay, well, clearly we don't agree, but, best of luck to you. I don't know why you're suddenly talking to me, or you trying to get me to say something rude, but I would prefer not to do that. I mean, I didn't want to be totally ugly to her, but for some reason, out of the blue yesterday, she just came after me, and I thought it didn't feel good to be attacked that way, but it also, because I want to be a nice guy and I don't like to cut people off that I've known peripherally for decades. But then finally I had to block her. Like, what in the hell is wrong with this woman? There are real consequences for being supportive of the conservative agenda, and specifically of President Trump. And I hope that, well, he knows the consequences because he's been abused personally. I wouldn't give these guys an inch if I thought I was right.
President Trump makes everybody show who they are.
Yeah.
And you know what? We can benefit from that. It's sad, but we need to see people for who they are, because then I'm not going to waste my time with people that don't respect me and disregard me. I'm not going to waste time with them, and I can focus more on people who share my values, who treat me with respect, and who need me in their lives. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about relationships, John.
Yeah. Patty Lyman is the Republican National Committee woman from Virginia, and I appreciate the chance to talk to you, Patty.
Thank you for having me, John, so much.
We'll have you back. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm John Reid. You're watching The Reid Revolution. Well, that's good. Whatever cloud was over Patty's house messing up the internet connection finally passed, and we were able to hear towards the end. Sorry about that.
I don't think and I'm just about to write her a text message. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it so eloquently. President Trump makes people show who they are. That is. I said when he first got elected in 2016, one of the reasons I was happy that he got elected was because it basically prompted the media to shed their sheep's clothing and show themselves for the wolves that they've always been. And that, to Patty's point, President Trump makes you show you who you are. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it would be amazing if this administration was covered, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say with neutrality, but with some level of fairness. As a former reporter, I don't have any. You go after people if they're trying to pull a fast one, or if they're being hypocritical, and if they're hiding things. I think that's legitimate. I don't think that's what we've witnessed. It's been.
He's never gotten a fair shake. Let's be
at all.
He's never gotten a fair shake.
And I gotta believe it's because the left feels like they're on the verge of victory, and anyone who stands up, who threatens the coalition of voters that they've put together. I think I'm one of those people, honestly. If you can shake the gay community and start to move them away from people who've been taking advantage of them, and you can kind of realign that voting pattern and the supporters who don't want to be involved in people's bedrooms. If you can shift that starts to fracture the coalition of voters that Democrats have counted on for a long time. It's another reason why they go after black Republicans with a viciousness that's just unbelievable. I mean, these are the people who talk about the oppression of blacks, but then the second a black person says, well, I think maybe Ronald Reagan was a good president, or George H.W. Bush, or Donald Trump was a good president, man, you are done. They will cut your throat in a heartbeat and it just reveals a bias that is pretty dramatic and horrible. And the way they treat individuals, I mean, I can testify to that. Go through my emails sometimes. It's brutal the way these people behave.
No,
and it's dishonest.
In point of fact, now that I have access to your Facebook page, I kind of have. it's
I know you see it.
It's yeah.
You used to think I was exaggerating at the radio
maybe a
station,
little,
didn't
but maybe a little. But I believe the thing is, and it's funny you should say this. I've had people say to me in recent days, weeks, oh well, John's exaggerating this or that or the other. Like, no, my experience is that if John says something, you can pretty much take it to the bank that's true. That if anything, John's probably understating.
I try to
the truth
because it doesn't do me any good to be a whiner.
No,
whining doesn't. I don't know. It was kind of how my parents wouldn't let me whine, really. So
you are an Eagle Scout. Let's be honest. That's part of the territory is the whole honesty of the Boy Scouts. But
you do have the thing from Charlottesville at Target, right?
Yeah.
You want to play this?
Let's do that.
Speaking of the ICE protests and the immigration issues, here are good friends in Charlottesville. And I love Charlottesville. Gosh, I went up going to UVA games. I just think Charlottesville's beautiful. Here, I think this is in the Target in Charlottesville. It's from the indivisible left-wing wacko group in Charlottesville. And it's a bunch of...
I'll play it again.
Looks like women. Maybe. I think it's mostly women. Yeah, right? It looks like that.
It's all women.
Who have bought
let's be clear. It's all women. They're all
a
women.
thing of salt to melt the ice, right? That's the whole gimmick. And they're showing up to buy one thing of salt at Target. Now, the twisted truth is Target is based in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And Target over the years has been a pretty left-wing, crazy group. I mean, they were the ones that were doing they spent millions coming up with these single single stall bathrooms in a public space because they were going to cater to the trans community. How insane is that? Total insanity. Like, I just don't understand why you would be willing to cater to that in all of your stores. I don't know. Maybe if you're in downtown San Francisco, maybe there would be a practical business reason to do that, but why would you do that everywhere? It seems crazy to me. They're the ones that have had the really over-the-top gay pride displays for years. I think they've kind of scaled back on that, and that's probably appropriate because people get tired of it. It's, they get tired of, and I say that as a part of that community. I just think the average person really doesn't appreciate it's like you always wish someone a happy birthday. Happy birthday. Gosh, I hope it's a great birthday. But everybody has a happy birthday. Everybody has a birthday. You hope it's a happy birthday. And we really don't want to dwell on everybody's birthday. It's one of the things. Once you get to 5,000 friends on Facebook, are you really going to send 5,000 notes to everybody on their birthday? I know people who did it for a few years, and then it just kind of got to be a little bit old. And especially if it's not somebody that you really like all that much, fairly or unfairly, it just gets kind of old. So Target realized, hey, we're kind of burning ourselves here, even if we fundamentally believe that June should be gay pride and everything should be rainbows, everything. Not everybody's on board with that, and maybe we should scale it back a little bit. Have a small section that celebrates that for the people who want to celebrate that, and then just let everybody else live their life without forcing it on them. I think that's the way to go when it comes to a business decision. But man, the left cannot stand it. They not only do they not accept you being hostile to them, which is one thing, but if you don't celebrate them, boy, they're ticked off and they'll come after you. So these dummies in Charlottesville are going around buying one thing of salt, tying up a left-wing store that's based in Minneapolis, ironically, to protest the ICE movement in Minneapolis. And sometimes you wonder, how smart are you? How brainwashed are you? That's ridiculous. Here's another thing that I think is just insane. And this happened yesterday. in Washington.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know,
that's
the,
what I was
the
thinking of
leftists are
Washington.
furious about the Trump Kennedy Center. Now, to be honest with you, I would have told President Trump, you let other people name things after you.
Yeah.
Don't don't do that to the Kennedy Center because it looks like you're impugning Kennedy or you're trying to steal. Let somebody else do that. Take the place over, stop the leftist swing in the management and the presentations, make them accept you at the Kennedy Center honors, which they so undiplomatically would not. But here's the way the arts community responds. And can anybody question why so many people hate these people?
See that pretty little sparrow looking back at me.
Oh, so clever. Yeah. We've all got our purple leotards on. Oh. Innocent little Renee Good gets in her car, right? Oh, and she just winds up getting killed by an ice
Yeah,
agent.
where's the person impersonating her agitating girl?
I mean,
Not how it happened. Anyway.
now we switched over to the Lincoln Memorial. She's a martyr. See how they lift her up like she's a martyr? So now we've got Freddie.
Alex Preddy.
Okay. I'm guessing that they wouldn't have done a dance routine about civil rights, the National Guard forcing desegregation on Southerners. That would have been an okay use of federal force. But in this case, we pick and choose. I don't know. I mean, I'm just so disgusted. I'm just so disgusted by the arts community and the way they behave. It's a reflexive leftist mindset. They use the skills they've got always to advance the leftist agenda. It's never objective. That's why now I go to shows and I have to go do my own research. Like, is the story that I'm being told a real story or not? Or is it a total fabrication or a lie? Usually I find out that it's some bastardization of the story. And then I really get tired when being a Republican is the punchline. Oh, an even better punchline is a gay Republican. Nobody defends. Everybody laughs at that. Everybody enjoys watching the gay Republicans be treated like crap in a public space. We're the total punchline for everybody. That's grown old over 30 years, I have to say. I mean, I'm just so sick of these people. It's really annoying. And the awful thing, Dan, you know me, I'd love to be a supporter. I'd
Yeah.
love to be. I mean, I still go buy
Yeah.
tickets to things with my own money. But I'm oftentimes I just think I got to get out of here. I can't be around this, especially since I think now they would turn on me and harm me personally, maybe physically, but certainly professionally and personally, they would try to harm me. So, I mean, I guess they proved that last year with some of the stuff that they tried to do to me. So, how do you live like that? How do they live like that? I guess everybody throws money at them and offers praise to them. It's really annoying.
I just sort of wonder where this all comes from. I mean, they are just so deep seated with their biases and their prejudices, and it really is such an almost universal thing, seemingly, especially in the theater community. Maybe there may be some break off.
They're the
in
worst,
Hollywood,
man.
But man,
They're the
theater
worst.
community is just.
You can't work in the theater community if you don't buy into their stuff. You say one thing that they don't approve of that's not on the leftist lexicon, and you're done with that crowd.
Yeah.
And I mean, on all candor, did they do anything to commemorate that poor woman who was stabbed in the neck on the train in Charlotte? Did they do anything?
Who was an immigrant?
Yeah, who was an immigrant? Did they do anything? No,
a Ukrainian immigrant, right?
And the people, Elon Musk, I'm told, paid to have murals done about that lady all across the United States, and they have been graffitied by the left. Now, I don't know. I lived in D.C. for a little while, and there was this, I'm told, an unwritten rule amongst taggers and graffiti people. It's really a kind of a subculture. You're not supposed to graffiti someone else's artwork. You're not supposed to touch someone else's artwork. You can spray paint whatever you want on someone else's private building, apparently. But if someone else has created something that's artwork, you're not supposed to tag it, and there could be consequences for that. It's like gang mentality.
Evidently,
but they've
those
tagged
rules were suspended in 2020 in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You go, I mean, they pick and choose who is abused, which art is desecrated, which art is torn down. And I'm supposed to sit over here and not say anything about it? Well, to hell with that. I do not accept that status in this society. I refuse. I will not accept it.
We talked about this with regard to the monuments. I mean, my primary allegiance to the monuments was simply as an artist. As an artist myself, I don't like to see art desecrated. I don't care.
Well, there were a lot of people who believed that, but you couldn't get them to talk
because art. You should not be desecrating art. Under no circumstances, don't do it. It's because this is somebody's.
Do you have? Last week I sent you. I don't know if you saw it. The photographs of the Lee statue from what used to be Monument Avenue is now just an overgrown mess in the snow. Did you see that?
I don't think that I have it on standby here. I could get that again for tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow we can get some folks on to talk about that issue because, and this gives me an opportunity to kind of reveal something that I haven't talked about. The Virginia Council has been working with allies across the state to try to save the artwork. I mean, I really am not interested in your opinion of Robert E. Lee or Stonewall Jackson. Fine. You're entitled to your opinion about everybody, about me, about Dan, about your own mother, whatever you think, that's your business. What becomes our business is when you take that into the public arena and you start tearing down things that have been there for 130 years that are universally recognized as magnificent art by premier artists, in this case in Europe, and then you dump them by the toilet water plant in Richmond and act like that's cool and that's okay. That's not okay. That is not a sign of civilization. It's a Taliban-esque behavior, and somebody needs to speak out against it. And I've just decided that's one of the things I'm going to speak out against. I guess it's a long list, but this is one of the things that I'm going to speak out against. We'll show that picture perhaps tomorrow, and we'll talk about the effort to save this art, because one of the things I think is going to happen is as the radicals become more emboldened, and they are after the elections last year, I think they're going to chop this stuff up, melt it down, create their nasty, grotesque art. Like they did this with some of the art from Charlottesville. It's on display in L.A. now. I think that's where this is. They melted down the Grand Master's artwork because it commemorated a Confederate general. And now one of these modern artists who clearly has zero talent has taken the pieces and created something that you look at it and you're not even sure what you're looking at. And of course, all the modern art masturbation experts walk around talking about how beautiful it is when it's clearly not. It's junk. It's not masterful. It's not artistic. It doesn't require any skill. And again, I think that's where we're headed if we don't get ahead of the plans to get rid of artwork. Like the 3 statues that the Democrats are gonna tear down in Capitol Square. We lost the election. They run Capitol Square. They even got rid of the oversight board. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, they got rid of the Preservation Council, which was supposed to offer guidance about tampering with or moving something in Capitol Square. And that has been eliminated. So now it's all political, And when Republicans have no political power, guess what? The Democrats are going to take advantage, and they're going to rip down these statues. And I guarantee you ask the people who hate Stonewall Jackson and Hunter McGuire and Extra Billy, the governor, those three statues, and they won't be able to tell you a damn thing about them. They just want them down because of some connection to the Confederacy.
Well, they literally cut the Lee statue in half, which I don't think needed to be done at all. They said, "Oh, well, we need to do it to transport."
I was there and watched them cut it in half.
Watched it.
I thought that it was my obligation as a former reporter and as a native Virginian to go see the destruction so I could testify about it. It was total bull that they can't transport these things. If you're going, they did that because they wanted to damage the work so that it was irreparable.
Yep.
And don't try to run this by me. Don't try to run anything else by me. I've been around long enough to know when I'm being lied to.
They certainly haven't put it back together, have they?
They haven't done anything.
No.
And the Black History Museum supposedly, I think this is questionable based on the way LeVar Stoney and the crooks in the city did this against the law. I mean, here's a pattern. You heard me talking earlier about how the Supreme Court failed to enforce the law and the rules as they are on the books when it comes to the redistricting. There is a pattern here where the courts are choosing to just let the left break their own rules. And, I may not get what I want. I understand that. I'm an adult. I've lived my life not getting what I want. And I can work with that if everybody's playing by the rules. But I can go through time and time again and say, why aren't the courts reading what is right in front of them, the rules that we're all supposed to play by and abide by, and enforce those rules, even if they disagree with the immediate outcome? Like, you could hate Robert E. Lee. You could hate Stonewall Jackson. I'm not going to debate that with you. What I am going to debate is whether it's legal to have the mob mandate that they be torn down and have an elected mayor unilaterally decide we're taking these down, declare a state of emergency, which was bogus at the time, and just tear these statues down. By the way, giving a sweetheart deal to his political allies. And no one has the standing to contest that, and the courts aren't willing to be objective enough to say, hey, we don't like him either, but we're not going to allow this. There's a problem. And I'm puzzled why the legal community doesn't discipline their own to say, you're obviously not up to the task here. It's tough. It's tough to discipline your own people. It's tough to abide by the law. And I think that message is getting through, and we're going to find that we're in an era where people say, to hell with the law, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And if you come for me, then I'm going to become dangerous. And see, that's not good for any of us.
Well, have I ever told you my thoughts on Lee specifically? I don't know if I've done that.
Well, let's save it because
save
it's probably a narrative. And I think we could do a show on it, like, who is Robert E. Lee? Right? Who was Robert E. Lee? Does anybody really? Nobody learns anything about it.
Pre-Civil War, in an era before musicians became famous and had groupies, or before you had sports stars, is it possible that Robert E. Lee was the most respected person in America circa 1850?
I believe that's true. You wouldn't know it today.
No.
You wouldn't know it today. No. All right. Well, we are running.
To defend him or to not say anything else about him one way or the other. Except that
his contemporaries thought very highly of him.
Probably the most respected man in America before the Civil War.
Now I don't think
so
that's
that
even
both sides
allowed.
wanted him to lead their army.
Yeah, that's often left out. All right. I hope that you will follow both of our pages on Facebook, The Reid Revolution with John Reid, and the backup page, The Reid Revolution. We're on X, we're on TikTok and Rumble. You can find us all over social media, so please give us a like if you would. And if you've seen an interview that went without technical glitches that you'd like to share, we'd certainly appreciate that too. They should be flooding the zone at the end of every program. And if you've got an idea for a guest, or if you'd like to advertise, the advertising begins in just a few days in March. Don't worry, I'm not going to let it take over the whole show. Just got to make something to pay back all of the debt here. The reidrevolution@gmail.com is the email. The reidrevolution@gmail.com. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow morning.